Anthony, I'm going to go to you first because we're going to go to your team. We're going to go to your Dallas Cowboys, Mr. Rico Dowdle. He's up 12.9. ADP is currently at 120.7. He had 19% of the Cowboys rushing attempts last year. Tony Pollard had 54. Tony Pollard's now gone. The other player we're discussing is Ezekiel Elliott. He is back in town. I don't think he's going to get 54% of those carries. Zeke is actually down 12.5 spots. That's 121.5. For what it's worth, Zeke finished 30th in PPR last year with the New England Patriots. Again, Anthony, we could talk about Dowdle first. We can go around the room. What kind of percentage in carries do you think we're going to get out of him?
Well, let's start here. The reason why I think we're seeing the Rico Dowdle spike, and I think it was a longtime Cowboys beat writer John Machota came out and said, hey, there's a good chance Rico Dowdle leads this team in rushing. And it made me think, because obviously Zeke is here. They have Royce Freeman. But if we go back to last season, Dowdle didn't look bad. Obviously, Tony Pollard was the guy. But Dowdle, 89 for 361, just over 4 yards a carry, 17 receptions for $144, and 4 total touchdowns. But he did look explosive. I forget which game it was, but I was like, wow, because Pollard was not delivering whatsoever, especially in the short yardage situations. And Dowdle looked good. I was questioning whether or not Dowdle should have seen more carries last year. Now, right now, I know Stephen Jones, I think one of the Joneses said that Royce Freeman looks good. Royce Freeman and Zeke, to me, are very similar skill set players, where Rico Dowdle, I think he's a little bit closer to the pass catcher of this group. We know Zeke can catch passes, but when it comes to like the all-around, like if there's another Tony Pollard, who's the change of pace guy, I think that guy is Rico Dowdle. So I don't mind taking some shots on Rico Dowdle. Nothing special last year, like only 2 runs of over 20 yards, no big rushing games over 100. It's a crapshoot. The only thing I do know for sure is that Zeke's going to be the starter, but there is going to be somebody else that he's going to concede touches to, and that's probably going to be Rico over Royce Freeman.
Yeah, this is not going to be the Zeke that we've known with the Cowboys. He's still got something in the tank, but he's not. If you think it's going to be what it was before he left, you're probably mistaken. Yeah. Steve, I'll go to you. I mean, again, these 2 backs in Dallas are kind of close to one another in ADP. What do you see when you look at this Dallas Cowboys backfield?
Yeah, I kind of do like Rico Dowdle a little bit more now, especially when you get into that zone where if you're taking wide receivers early and you need to stack some guys, stack some running backs later on and try to look for a starter or a co-starter, and Rico Dowdle is one of those guys. You get him in the 11th round. So I don't think that's a terrible price. And I do think he's going to kind of be effective. They didn't add anybody. Royce Freeman, he's been in a million places. He had a couple decent games for the Rams last year, but that's a running back friendly system anyway, with a lot of volume. And Dowdle, did show a lot of bursts. I think his best game last year was against the Giants. He had 6.6 yards per carry. Also had a touchdown in that game. So with more of a chance, I think he could be a nice factor. They still have a good offensive line. This is going to be an offense that's in scoring position a lot. Now, Zeke should still get those goal line carries and get those short yardage carries. But, I mean, Zeke's older now. Who's to say that Rico Dowdle doesn't surpass him at some point this season? I like this spot for Rico Dowdle. And I kind of like his talent a little bit as well.
Yeah, Pete, I was going to kind of ask you that. I mean, you could talk about whatever with these running backs, but I was going to, Steve kind of alluded to it. The red zone was a big problem last year for the Cowboys. One of these running backs is going to make hay in that red zone. Which one of those backs you think it was? Because even if, look at this, as bad as Pollard was last year in the red zone, still the RB14 in PPR format. So what do you think, Pete, when you look at these 2 backs, in general or also with the red zone?
Yeah, so red zone wise, Pollard got 61 rushes in the red zone, which was actually second in the NFL. Cowboys, I guess a clock is right twice a day kind of thing, where you might as it's not even if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing, because it was broken and they just continue to do the same thing. But look, I worry about this running back room only because If I'm going to take a shot, it's obviously the cheapest guy. We say that a lot with the uncertain rooms. I'm starting to lean Dowdle the more that the camp moves on. But this is just a room that it feels like we're waiting on a signing. We're waiting on a guy to get cut that's going to come in and cause issues. Yeah, Anthony, I'm not talking about Dalvin Cook, but guys that are on the roster bubble like a Miles Sanders, right? Who if Rashad Penny and Jonathan Brooks, if their rehab looks like it goes well, like they may be willing to save cap there. Samaje Perine from the Broncos, right? I mean, for what it's worth, I mean, I know I'm a Broncos fan and I want them to cut Perine because I like the backs in the room and they could save money, but I wouldn't be hard pressed to say Perine would be the best back in that room if he signed there. I mean, he was effective for them, especially in the pass game.
I don't think that's crazy.
No, and it's not crazy to assume that it might happen. I mean, reports are that he, there's a good chance he ends up getting cut. So I just worry about, I don't mind taking one of these guys because they're going so late. But I would be worried if Zeke is like my RB3. I wouldn't want to. No, what? Did he retire like this week?
Yeah.
Rashad Penny retired months ago.
No,
that wasn't months ago. It wasn't months ago.
It feels like months ago. It was not a week or two ago.
Yes, it was a week or two.
Yeah, it must have been a week.
It was a couple weeks ago.
I don't know about that. I think it was about a week ago.
Months ago.
Regardless,
what was the comment on Rashad Penny that you?
July
30th. Okay.
Yeah,
my point about my point about Rashad Penny too is he played with Canales in Seattle, and he was a guy that Canales obviously liked when they drafted him. John makes a good point. Khalil Herbert in Chicago. I think if Khalil Herbert went there, I think he could easily be the lead back as well. So I don't mind taking a shot on this room because it's cheap. But I wouldn't if my running back room isn't great. I'm not going to sit there and feel comfortable if if either of them are my RB3 on the roster.
Anthony, did you have one last comment since you're the Cowboy guy?
I get what Pete's saying. There's a signing waiting to happen. The reason why, and I wish, as a Cowboys fan, I wish that was the case. But Jerry's not signing his own guys.
What do you mean? He's all in.
How bad would it look if they go and bring in some vet? And it's like, hey, what about CD Parson? He got to sign his own guys.
Come on. No
urgency.
Sign them for veteran. They're probably signing these guys for veteran minimum. And the way it works is the offsets on the contract. Perine and them are going to get paid a certain amount of money for their deal. So you can sign them for the minimum anyway. They're not. They still got to make signings if guys. Jerry
Jones wipes his ass with what he'd pay Khalil Herbert.
Listen. I hope you guys are right, but last year I was waiting for that signing to complement Tony Pollard. It never happened. They went with Rico and Malik Davis. I was waiting for that signing this offseason when Derrick Henry was available and we got Zeke back. But this is probably going to be the backfield barring injury. I'm sorry, they brought in Ronald Jones last year. You never saw the field. These are the type of signings that Jerry has been making.
Jones. But who are they going to bring in anyway? I mean, Dalvin Cook, I guess, maybe.
But
John says Khalil Herbert, but I mean, Khalil Herbert might be the best running back on the Bears. So do they want to trade him? I don't know.
My big issue, if this is the backfield going in, and it looks like it because Rico and Zeke are the ones splitting first team reps through camp, is that Machota might be right. He's going to lead the team in rushing. But Zeke's going to get the more valuable touches when it comes to pass catching, third down, and goal line. So I'm still more inclined to roster Zeke over Rico.
Okay. Yeah, but he's the safer pick. But if you want, Dowdle gives you the upside.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Because Zeke at this point, how much is he really going to do for? But I mean, he was fairly decent last year in New England, taking catches away from Ramondre Stevenson.